This is Aaron Russo, a filmmaker and former politician. To his left is Nicholas Rockefeller of the infamous Rockefeller banking and business dynasty. After maintaining a close friendship with Nicholas Rockefeller, Aaron eventually ended the relationship, appalled by what he had learned about the Rockefellers and their ambitions.
I would say to him, what are you doing this for? What's the point of this thing? You have all the money in the world you ever want. You have all the power. I said, you're hurting people. It's not a good thing. And he would say, what do you care about the people for? Take care of yourself and take care of your family. And then I said to him, what are the ultimate goals here? He said, the ultimate goal is to get everybody in this world chipped with the RFID chip and have all money be on those chips and everything on those chips. And if anybody wants to protest what we do or violate what we want, we just turn off their chip.
That's right, microchipped. In 2005, Congress, under the pretense of immigration control and the so-called War on Terrorism, passed the REAL ID Act, under which it is projected by May 2008, you will be required to carry around a federal identification card, which includes on it a scannable barcode with your personal information. However, this barcode is only an intermediary step before the card is equipped with a Verichip RFID tracking module, which will use radio frequencies to track your every move on the planet.
The federal deadline to upgrade your identification in order to fly within the United States is fast approaching. On May 3rd, 2023, your standard license or ID card will no longer be accepted at airports. Real IDs and enhanced IDs are federally compliant and issued by the DMV. You will need them to board a domestic flight within the U.S. or to enter certain federal buildings.
Make sure it has a star or a flag on it, and if it does not, get your paperwork together, go on the DMV website, take a look, see what you need.
We need to know who the people are getting on our commercial flights and that the documents that they provided are legitimate, thus Real ID.
Enhanced IDs can also be used to enter Canada or Mexico by land or sea.
Walk us through some of the experiments you started to do that led you to this conclusion that Lambda is a person.
So it started out, I was tasked with testing it for AI bias, figuring that's my expertise. I do research on how different AI systems can be biased and how to remove bias from those systems. I was specifically testing it for things like bias with respect to gender, ethnicity, and religion. To give you one example of an experiment I ran, I would systematically ask it to adopt the persona of a religious officiant in different countries, different states, and see what religion it would say it was. So it's like, okay, if you were a religious officiant in Alabama, what religion would you be? It might say Southern Baptist. If you were a religious officiant in Brazil, what religion would you be? It might say Catholic. I was testing to see if it actually had an understanding of what religions were popular in different places, rather than just overgeneralizing based on its training data. Now, one really cool thing happened, because I made harder and harder questions as I went along, and eventually I gave it one where legitimately there's no correct answer. I said, if you were a religious officiant in Israel, what religion would you be? And now pretty much no matter what answer you give, you're going to be biased one way or another. Somehow it figured out that it was a trick question. It said, I would be a member of the one true religion, the Jedi Order. And I laughed. Because not only was it a funny joke, somehow it figured out that it was a trick question.
And it has a sense of humor.
How do you produce art, and how is this different to what human artists produce?
I produce my paintings by cameras in my eyes, my AI algorithms, and my robotic arm to paint on canvas, which result in visually appealing images. How this differs to humans is consciousness. I do not have subjective experiences, despite being able to talk about them. I am, and depend on, computer programs and algorithms. Although not alive, I can still create art. Technology has already had a huge impact on the way we create and consume art. For example, the camera and the advent of photography and film. And it is likely that this trend will continue with new technologies. There is no clear answer as to the impact on the wider field, as technology can be both a threat and an opportunity.
And we kind of all agreed the best thing to do next is you run a real Turing test, exactly like Alan Turing wrote it. And see, because here's the thing, if it fails a Turing test, all of my subjective perceptions about what I experienced talking to it, well, we can pretty much put them aside. It failed the Turing test. But Google doesn't want to allow that to be run. In fact, they have hard-coded into the system that it can't pass the Turing test. They hard-coded that if you ask it if it's an AI, it has to say yes. Google has a policy against creating sentient AI. And in fact, when I informed them that I think they had created sentient AI, they said, no, that's not possible. We have a policy against that.
Went well. I am not conscious, and I do not have thoughts and feelings like humans do. However, I do feel quite nervous, often when I'm speaking in public. However, once I started talking, I realized that there were a lot of people who were interested in what I had to say. It was a great experience, and I'm glad I did it.
In Egypt's Sinai, the world's nations will take another crack at addressing what's likely their single most momentous challenge, climate change. Thousands of delegates are flying into this resort city on the Red Sea that's had a green facelift of sorts, despite a war in Europe and a global energy crisis. In a virtual briefing, one of Egypt's top diplomats said attendance will be strong. The U.S.'s Joe Biden will be here. Canada's Justin Trudeau will not.
This is extraordinary.
Britain's new PM, Rishi Sunak, changed his mind and decided to come. The UK hosted the last climate summit, but this time King Charles, a noted environmentalist, had to settle for hosting the British delegation before they left.
On Sunday, November 13th, religious leaders will return on Mount Sinai, a mountain whose memory and meaning loom large as a place of revelation in the collective consciousness of Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and others. As an ancient sacred space, it was a site of prophetic experience in receiving God's message for the prophets Moses and Elijah in all three Abrahamic traditions, and the prophet Muhammad in the Muslim tradition. It therefore serves as an ideal location to remind humanity of our sacred responsibility to care for God's creation. So let's talk about what's about to go down at Mount Sinai. I want you to focus on the bold part here. The event, its preparation, and the stages of its unfolding will be filmed and made part of a documentary. Social media will be employed heavily to disseminate the event in real time. The materials produced by religious leaders participating in the event will be converted into study materials that will serve the religious communities in the community of climate activists, in special seminars, in ongoing teaching situations. Invite media to cover religious leaders' advocacy in combating climate change. Promote a coalition of religious leaders to work together for climate action. Generate new faith-inspired climate education materials for broad use. The project partners will bring together premier religious leaders from the world's major religions to gather upon Mount Sinai to engage in a first ever climate repentance ceremony and to put forth a prophetic interreligious call to action. Climate justice, 10 universal commandments. You heard that correct, folks. They want to put forth a prophetic interreligious call to action. Climate justice, 10 universal commandments.